I went with about 1 kilogram of beef mince and a little over 1 kilo of pork sausage. But ideally you want something between 1 to 1 to 2 to 1 to beef to the pork. Now cut the garlic nice and small. Just, you can crush it up however you wish, nice and small. In proportion to how much meat you have, if you have 1 kilo of meat, give or take, you might want 3 to 4 cloves, fairly sizable ones, and then just increase it appropriately. Now for the onions, I used 3 fairly sizable onions, medium to large. I'd probably, if you want to go with 1 kilogram of meat, we went with 2, just go 2 onions. It's an onion, it's not that bad whether you put too much or too little in, to be honest. For the record, holy crap, I cried so hard doing that. You want to cut celery into small pieces, just like you did with the onions. I found it easier to cut it in half, first widthways, then cut it lengthways, then into tiny little bits like as you see. Sometimes I like to grate the celery and also the carrots that are coming up, and yeah, cut the carrot lengthways and then cut it across again just to make sure it gets nice and small. Now I'm going to cut up some parsley, nice and fine for garnish, although that's optional. I do suggest you need is some rosemary. I don't recommend buying it, it's expensive, it's kind of a rip-off. Look for some in your neighborhood, there should be some growing on the street, on the curb. Now here's the banger part. Ideally, I went with the cheaper route. I went with cheap sausages, little bit more tedious. I kind of regret picking this, but it makes it a bit, because it was cost effective, I just went with this. What you would have done is take off the natural casing, so you just expose the sausage meat, but because these are pectin based casings, it's just a bit too hard to take off, so I just cut them up into pieces and mushed it all together. Mushed all the meat together so it's nice and, well, as if you bought just straight up sausage mince. With the batch I had to cook the meat in 2 batches, but heat up some oil in a pan nice and hot. You could probably go as hot as you want because you want to brown the meat and give it nice and flavor. Put a bit of salt and pepper in there. Whilst you're cooking it, there's going to be plenty of liquid that comes out of it. Sometimes as you can see, there's stuff at the bottom that's going to stick. Use some water to pour some water into the pot, scrape it all off, putting the meat in a separate bowl. Once your meat is done, put some oil in a pan and put your onions and garlic in. What you want to do is just, cook them down, caramelize them a little. Here you can see me pour some water in. It would just, I suppose, cook the onions a bit quicker. You don't have to do this if you have time. This is more of the lazy way. Season it just as you wish. It's coming together, it's much more brown now. And we'll put the onions aside because it's quite a lot of volume now. Remember, this is for about a 2.2 kilo batch of meat. Next, we're going to cook the celery and carrots. You want to make sure they're nice and soft. You don't want to be crunching into, or carrot or celery whilst you're eating the bolognese. The idea behind it is to release the sweetness and the flavor of these vegetables, bringing more dimension to, I suppose, the meat sauce you'll have later. Season it and put the chopped up rosemary in there. Now what I'm going to do is add a bit of pinch of chili flakes. Now, I do recommend adding a little bit. It's not going to be hot. Once, you can always adjust the heat later on, based on your preferences. But a little bit, it goes a long way. Now, here's what I did. I put some tomato paste in, quite a bit for the size we're making. And what you want to do is make sure you cook it all out. Make sure there's nice fond at the bottom. Cook through the water. Steam it all off. Once this tomato paste is all kind of cooked, pour some red wine into it, deglazing it. Similar to how you did with the water and the onions. Once you have cooked down the carrots and the celery with the wine, put back the onions that you cooked earlier. Mix it all together. Now at this point, your carrots and celery should be quite soft as well. At this point, I'm just waiting for all the liquid to just be evaporated all off. That way I have plenty of space to put the beef stock and the crushed tomatoes in. Put the meat back into the mix once all the water is almost evaporated.
Why are you so scared?
Here's the fun part, the fact that if I'm making this big of a batch, I regrettably chose a too small of a pot. It's far more preferable to make your own beef stock, but then again, if you're going to buy your own stock, make sure to buy the salt reduced kind, then you can adjust for later. Add your bay leaves, follow it up with canned tomatoes. It should look fairly nice and red. It's a bit too orange at this point. You want to let it simmer for an hour or so. Ideally longer. If you can do it for like 3 hours, that'd be great. But at this current point, if I continued, I would have burnt the bottom even more. You can kind of see the little black bits. After we stirred it, we actually scraped off. If your bottom does burn, then yeah, make sure you can take out little burnt bits. We managed to get 6 more takeaway container sized amounts of bolognese out of this batch. Boil a pot of water and salt it so it's as salty as the sea. Make sure you cook it al dente. It should be toothsome, I think it means. It's spaghetti bolognese, not fettuccine or penne, just spaghetti. It's the best one. Lastly, you want to plate up your spaghetti bolognese. Portion out some spaghetti onto a plate. Hard-earned meat sauce on top of it. Sprinkle that parsley you cut up earlier. Shave some parmesan on top. And you're done.